We're here to talk about brand identity and the importance of values. My name is Lou Williams. I'm from Grant Thornton, and I'm responsible for the implementation of a new program called G. But we're also here to launch our retail growth program. And if you want to know some more about that, you can come and see me in the VIP lounge at the end. To try to underpin the values and the importance of having values when you're starting to create a brand, I'm going to do it through a video. So look and learn, listen, and I'll tell you what you need to take out of that video at the end of it.
Running a business is not just about making money. As far as I'm concerned, running a business is about corporate social responsibility. I had a very bad head-on car crash 24 years ago. I spent a few weeks at Thomas's Hospital next to a young mum. She was buying clothes for her 2 children. I realised that mail order catalogues for children were pretty dull. So that sparked the idea to bring Breton-style fashion, add a sort of dose of quirky British humour into the design, and Jojo Maman Bébé was launched, in effect, from my hospital bed. We have grown to being the UK's leading independent mother and baby brand. I don't run this business to make myself rich or to feed my ego. I do it because I have a sense of responsibility. We abide by our mantra, which is people and the planet above profit. The most useful thing an individual can do in life is to provide ethical employment. It's really important for me that people don't miss out on real life, which is your home life. A business has to have a heart, it has to have a soul, and the people in that business, they're real people. They're the ones who are going to make it succeed. And if you treat your people like numbers, then actually they behave like numbers. Corporate social responsibility is very close to my heart. We wanted to look at what happened to the clothes after our customers outgrew them, and quite often they'd end up put out for the rubbish men. We thought, let's see if we can do something proactive with this. We're now on our 2nd year of running our From a Mother to Another initiative, which in effect is the gift of love from a parent to another. Last year, 50,000 pieces of clothing and 22,000 pairs of shoes were given to parents in need in the UK and to Syrian refugees. You've got to have something more to instill trust in your customer. So I do think corporate social responsibility, which is believable and not just a PR tick box, is essential. Women tend to nurture their companies. We grow them for longevity. We're proud of what we do. The big marketing gurus are going to start saying, listen to these women who run their companies with a heart, because these are the people who are taking their businesses into the next generation. The challenge is going to be to retain this ethos as we grow into a global brand. But that's the most important thing on my agenda.
You heard her say the most important thing is to have values, and she started those values when she created the brand. So what is a brand? Well, a brand is not just the name of your business. It's not the name of your retail outlet. It's not the name of your product or service. A brand is much more about the feelings that your name encourages to your consumers. So it's actually how your brand, how your retail outlet or your product is positioned in the heads of your customers. So it's really important to have and have created those brand values. And to give you another example, Apple. Apple stands for a lot of different values, but cleanliness of style, simplicity, approachability, ease of use, and that comes out in everything that they do, in the way that they present their store to the outside consumers, to the way they design their products, and their packaging is to die for. I just love buying Apple products just because the packaging is so delightful. So not just having a set of values, but making sure that they are embedded in the people who are delivering your brand, the way that your store or shop looks, the way your website looks, and the way that you communicate to your customers, the messages that you give out. Now, in my 25 years experience of dealing with small, medium-sized retailers and business owners, I've often heard these comments. So most small businesses will say to me, I don't need a fancy logo. A brand is not about a logo. It's not about the name of your business. Remember, it's about that connection with your customer. I'm not big enough to worry about having a brand. You saw from that last example that it's really important to start think about developing your brand and your values right at the outset of the concept of your business. People often think that branding is about having a big budget. It isn't. It's about understanding the values, the passion that you have for what you do, and being able to communicate them. And you don't need a lot of money to be able to do that. Again, it's not having a logo in stationery. It really is. It's about this feeling, this connection that you have with your customers. And the last bit they usually say to me is, well, my customers know all about me. Well, of course they do, but what about the people who don't know about you? Those are the people that you're trying to communicate with. I'm just going to tell you a little story, because I like stories. There's a brand. Anybody heard of Montezuma chocolate? Oh, good. Few nods. Great. Lovely. It was started by a couple of lawyers who graduated from law school and then decided, guess what, they don't want to do law. So they went on a trip around the world and found themselves in a cocoa plantation and realized that they had a real passion for chocolate. And they both said, let's start a chocolate business. But right at the outset, they said, we need to make sure we have a good fair trade policy. And all the way through the development of that business, so they started off in their kitchen in Brighton. They now have three or four stores, and they're now also in, I think, Waitrose. So it's really, really important that even no matter how small you are, you really need to start thinking about that connection with your customers. So what makes a good brand? And I've heard this on the stage, the main stage over there. I heard it last week at the NEC. It's about passion. You're in this business because you're passionate about it. And that shows. When you talk to customers, you talk to people about your business, you can tell those people that are really passionate. It comes across in everything they say and they do. A brand will help deliver differentiation or uniqueness, or in the old days we used to call it USP, unique selling proposition. But it's a way to make you stand out, because customers will say to you, why should I buy your brand? What is it that makes you better or different than those people over there or that competition over there? So it's really, really important to have that uniqueness. It's also brilliant if you've got a story to tell. And it doesn't matter how small that story is. Everybody starts with a little story about how they started their business. I was listening, again, over on the main stage, to a lady who has the clothing shop, I think she's called. I can't remember now. But she started off grassroots, small store. So it's all about starting right at the very beginning of your journey. That will help you develop this connection to your customers. Really important, that connection. You're trying to get inside their heads. You're trying to stand in their shoes and understand what it is they want from you. What do they want to feel about your brand? It will also help you to develop a personality. And that is really important when you're trying to sell maybe a fashion brand, is to have that personality. I think we all know the difference between Gucci and Dior and some of the other famous names. They have a personality. And that comes through, certainly, when you see their perfume ads. Very, very distinctive feelings, very different from each other. And it's a level of honesty. It helps you communicate that you're not going to do nasty things with their data. So really important to think about those things when you're creating a brand, because it's all about, no, it's not. Yes, it is. It's all about creating a brand. This is another story. I'm all over the place this afternoon. It's because we're in a fashion environment. Innocent was started by two guys in a field at a music festival. And they decided they wanted to have a go at making smoothies, but with none of the rubbish or the additives that go in it. And they asked the people who came to the festival, do you think we should give up our jobs or not? And everybody said resoundingly, yes, give up your jobs and start this business. But as Innocent have grown to a major brand now, you can still see they have those strong brand values about purity of ingredients, about sourcing, about sustainability. So really important to think about those things right at the beginning, and I will keep on saying this, right at the beginning of developing your business. Because it's all about how you run your business, how you work in your business, how you look to the outside world. And that's not just the people who are buying your products or services, it's the people who work in your business as well. They are so important to the communication of your brand and your values, and it's how you relate to them. So why do you need a brand? Now, as I've been passionately talking about that, I should ask you, the audience, to tell me, but I'm going to let you off this time. It's about creating a difference. You need to have a differentiation. And I've got an example, and forgive me, it's a car example. It should have been a fashion brand. It's about connecting with your customers, and it's about adding value. And all of that together gives you what we call in the business an emotional connection. The stronger that emotional connection is with your customer, the more forgiving they are when you make small mistakes, the more they'll stay with you for the journey rather than swap because you're the cheapest brand, because you have that emotional connection. You have a feeling, you've created a feeling with your consumers. Now, to give you a sense of what that means, up here, now you can't probably read it, so I'll chat through. It's 4 brands of car, A, B, C, and D. They're all about roughly the same price. They've got roughly the same engine size. In fact, all their stats are roughly the same. So how do you choose? How do you decide which of those brands you're going to buy? It's very, very difficult. And the only way you do that is if I put this next slide up, you'll instantly have a feeling about those brands, because they have particularly spent a lot of money creating that, but you don't need to spend the money. So for me, it's always been a BMW. But it's so powerful that it instantly creates that emotional connection. So why do we need brand values? You need brand values because they help to communicate, they help to build this connection, this association with your customers. And to do that in a more effective way, I'll give you an example. 3 big brands there, NFL, Coca-Cola, and Virgin. Now, interestingly, when they talk about themselves, they don't talk about their product or service. They actually talk about their values. They talk about the emotional connection. So NFL says, to be the premier sports and entertainment brand that brings people together, connecting them socially and emotionally like no other. It doesn't mention that they sell seats in a football stadium at all. It talks about the emotional connection they have with the people who come to their stadiums. Coca-Cola says, to inspire moments of optimism and uplift. Now, they spent years and years developing that particular connection and feeling, but it doesn't talk about how lovely their Coca-Cola is, what it tastes like. Nothing at all about the product. And Virgin says to be genuine, fun, contemporary, and different in everything we do at a reasonable price. Doesn't say there that they sell airline seats. So it's all about understanding that emotional connection with your customer. So what are brand values? How do you create them? They are the words and qualities that describe your brand. So if you think back to that previous slide, how Virgin, Coca-Cola, NFL, BMW, any of those brands, Gucci, Dior, they all create an emotional connection with their customers. That comes out in the way that they use the words that they use. So there are emotional words they use in those sentences to try to create that emotional connection with customers. Those words or phrases don't tend to be tangible, so you can't measure them. It's really difficult to do that. But they also go to provide reassurance and credibility that your customers need. And the last thing they do is they make the brand attractive to your target market to help guide customers to a buying decision. Really interesting. There is no point in actually having an articulation of your values if you do not communicate that to the people in the business. Let me give you an example. I was fortunate enough to work on the Petronas brand, which is a big oil and gas company in Kuala Lumpur. And they occupy the Twin Towers in Kuala Lumpur. Some of their values are all about friendliness, approachability, sustainability, green. So you walk into Petronas, the Twin Towers, and it's enormous reception. And there isn't a single seat in that reception at all. And the first thing they do when you go up to a bank of very grim-faced receptionists is they take your passport away. So it's not a very good experience. And we've all been to places like that where the brand says something else, says have an emotional connection, but it's not apparent when you actually go in and experience the brand. So it's really important to make sure that you communicate those values to the people who work in your stores, your retail outlets, to the people who are communicating or giving messages out, doing your advertising or your PR. It's really, really important that the way that you present your business to the outside world reflects the values that you want your brand to say to your customers. So one of the most important things to take away from this particular presentation, and we are approaching the end of it, is you need to get inside the shoes of the people that buy your products or services. You need to get into the shoes of the people who visit your retail stores. And I really do mean that. It's a very illuminating exercise when you work in the heady heights of marketing, say for people like Nestle, but to actually go out and buy the products that they sell in the way that they sell them through the supermarkets, go on that journey. It tells you a lot about how your customers behave, how they buy your product, how frequently they buy it, how easy it is to buy the product. And that's also applicable to stores that have just an online presence. And I think Amazon is a brilliant example of that, because you wake up in the middle of the night, as I do occasionally, go onto Amazon and say, I want that, click, it's done. It's on my doorstep the next day. That is amazing customer service, because they've thought about the journey. They've gone and actually done the buying process, not left it to the people who've created the website, because it's easy for them to make you go on a circuitous journey around the site to get to what you want, which is to buy the product now. So it's really important to do that, understand, get under the skin of your customers. If you do nothing else for the rest of this year, do that. The first rule of good branding is to find out, understand your customer, find out what attracts them to your brand. Now, a lot of you might say, well, how do we do that? It's really simple. Ask them. Ask them. Customers love being asked their opinions. They love being able to tell you that they like this and they love that, but really hate, why do you do this? So understanding your customer, doing that piece of market research. There's a thing called SurveyMonkey. It's cheap, free, easy to use. There are lots of different ways of talking to your customers, but what you really need to do is to talk to them and get them to feed back to you what they like about the product, service, or the shop that they go into, and what they don't like. And that way, you'll develop that stronger relationship. You need to understand how they shop for the products and services and how they buy those products. And once you understand their needs and wants, and I go on about needs and wants of customers, then it's relatively easy to brand your retail business. Now, I've got a couple of visual examples. They're little videos. It's a really old ad, so the pricing is a bit wonky. But for years and years, Volvo spent a lot of time and money creating a set of values, and their strongest value was safety. So a lot of people went out and bought a Volvo because their wife was having a baby, or they had children that they wanted to make sure they were safe. And Volvo spent a lot of time and money creating a car that was actually safer than most other cars on the market. That's not true today. But people still remember that safety was the value that, that Volvo created for themselves. The next one's slightly easier and a bit more upmarket, and much more in tune with this target market age. Okay, so it was Nike, and I can do some of those breakdancing moves, but I'm a bit challenged in these heels today. Nike, their premise is that we support great athletes and we support great athletics, and that's what it says about their brand. That's why all the kids want to go out and buy Nike trainers, because they associate themselves with those great athletes. How to make your brand values work. I'm repeating myself again, but it's really, really important that you get to understand your customer. If you have a lovely retail shop, a fashion shop, and your assistants are really grumpy, that is not a very good impression when you walk into the store. So you need to make sure that it's not just you that understands your values, it's all the people who work in your business. So really important, the people who are interfacing with your customers, so that they're going to reflect those values. If you're an online presence and you provide your products by delivery service, you really don't want them to arrive like this, because that will not reflect onto the delivery service, it will reflect on your brand. So it's really important that you check out that journey. So even checking out your suppliers who are going to interact with your customers, really important to understand that journey and make sure it's as seamless and as perfect as possible. And if you are an online retailer, please don't put up a website like that. I think we're all getting a lot better at website design, but think about your customer. Don't ever let the beta testing be done by the people who are creating your website. Get your friends and your families to go in and try it out, because that's the only way you'll find out how slick that process is. So really important to check back, standing in the shoes of your customer. And finally, 2 things to say. Talk to your customers regularly. and think about really carefully what you want them to think about your brand. Not just think, but feel. What emotion do you want them to feel when they interact with your brand, product, or service?